Good day, gamers. Today, invulnerability, invincibility, whatever you want to call it, frames. Cool. All right. So last time we basically set it up so that when the player entered a damage zone or a heal zone, something happened. Well, we want it so that the player will periodically lose health, not instantly die. You could make it insta kill, sort of like a damage zone by simply changing the variable to something that would instantly kill them. So instead of -1, put -5. But we want it so that, like, at least initially, we have damage zones that gradually kill you rather than immediately kill you. So we need to do some big things in our player controller script. So let's go ahead to our player controller script, and we're going to be needing to create some variables that we're going to be referencing. Okay, so we're going to go ahead here. I'm going to comment, and we're going to say here, we're going to say here for temp invince. I can never spell this. How about we'll say here invincible. All right, stuff. Keep that going. All right, let me increase the size here. We are going to, first of all, basically, so we want it so that we have some invulnerability frames. Okay, so we're going to need initially some time. We're going to need here, we'll call this public float, and then we'll say here time, and then now I really got to spell it right. INVINCIBLE. Okay, and we're going to set this to 2.0f. And then semicolon. That's going to make it so that, like, we take damage, and then for about 2 seconds, we'll have invulnerability. Then we're going to declare what's called a Boolean value. A Boolean value is going to be true or false. So we basically want to say, like, in terms of, like, are we invincible or are we invincible, or can we be hurt? So we're going to say here bool. Okay, so there's that thing. Boolean value, true or false. Okay, is invincible. Okay, IN. Actually, here we can just haha, copy that. There we go. And then we'll say here is invincible. Is invincible. Okay, that's gonna be true or false. And now float, and then damage cooldown. Okay, so we've got 3 variables that we're going to be working with. So let's go ahead now to our, we're basically going to be creating something in our update function that's going to deal with time. So let's go to our update section. So right now, the only thing in there is, like, every frame we're going to check to see what our movement is. Okay, cool, nice. But we need to add something here. So this is going to be, and then we're going to set it to, we're going to start off with an if statement. Okay, so if, and then parenthesis is invincible. Okay, so this is basically saying, are we invincible or not? All right, let's do an open bracket. And then we're going to say here, damage cooldown is going to be minus equals time dot, no, time dot, it's capital T, time dot, it keeps on auto completing. I don't want that. Time dot delta time. All right. So this is going to be able to incorporate, like, time. Okay, so we want to be able to basically set it up. So we before we had set, like, our stuff here related to like being able to keep track of how long we want to have these invincibility frames. Okay, and then we're going to say if damage cooldown is less than 0, and then let's do here a open bracket. I'm going to say is invincible equals false. Okay, so this is basically the timer that's going to keep track of, like, so that if we get hit, we don't immediately die. All right, so we've got the time component. Now we need to go ahead and work with our change health component. So this is actually called a nested if statement. Okay, so we have here, this if statement is only going to be checked if this first if statement is true. So if this is true and this is true, we're going to set that. Okay, so let's go back to change health. So before we had basically anytime change health is being checked, we're going to change the health. Anytime that function is called, we're going to change the health. We're going to now set, so like we want it so that the player doesn't immediately uh, uh, die. Okay, so we're going to say here, if the amount, let's put parentheses, if amount is less than 0. So remember, the information that's going to be passed to change health, typically, not typically, always, if we want to damage him, it's going to be a negative number. Okay, if it's healing, it's going to be a positive number. So we go ahead here, if the amount is less than 0, all right, we can go ahead and we can set it, and we're going to say like if, and then is invincible, we're going to return. So that is a fancy way of saying that, like, if you get, if someone or something is saying you need to take some damage, but you're invincible, don't do anything. This is what's called a return statement. It's going to just stop dead in its tracks. All right. So let's also just make sure that that return statement is in a curly bracket. There we go. Cool. All right. So let me just actually do that. There we go. If is invincible is true, then we're going to stop. Otherwise, is invincible is going to be set to true, and then damage cooldown is going to be set to time invincible. That's that sort of that variable that we had set before. Okay. So all that is to say is that, like, all of this code is doing, all the code is doing is basically checking to see, should, like, did I just take damage? Okay. If so, make it so that I don't immediately die. It's not that bad. Okay. Cool. So so that should be it. While we're here, let's also, well, let's go back to Unity, make sure there's no issues. Okay. And now let's test. Let's make sure that we don't immediately die. All right, so we're gonna go to our damage zone. 4, 3, 2, and now this is the action we want. We want it so that we don't immediately die. Now it's pausing because if we go to our player character, we see here we've got that time invincible. That is set to be 2. So that's basically 2 seconds essentially. I'd promise as well setting it so that you can get variables to your like how making it so that it's not automatically a 1 health when it comes to our health collectible. So we're going to do this. This is sort of next to last thing. We're going to go to our health collectible script. Okay, and just similar to what we did with um, the damage zone and heal zone, we're going to do the same thing. We'll just say public int. We'll say power. And then let's set it initially to 1, and then let's save that. Oh, sorry, we got to also then reference it here. So where it says change health, let's also put power. Let's save that, and then let's go back here. And now we see here we've got power. Initially, that's going to just increment your health by 1, but we could change that. So if we wanted to make like a super health pickup. While we're here, and this is the last thing, we're going to make prefabs for our heal zone, okay? And then as well as our health collectible. Okay, so now right now your prefab folder should have a health collectible, a damage zone, a heal zone, and the player character. Good stuff. I wish you the best of luck. Rock and roll.